had asked about, oh, everybody experiences imposter syndrome. Even if you think you don't, here's the deal. Imposter syndrome only happens when we're playing on the skinny branches because the brain's going to react when it experiences a perceived threat. So if you don't have imposter syndrome, my friend, you're not playing a big enough game.
Hello and welcome to the Keynote Curators podcast, Curated Insights. I'm Seth Dechtman. I'm your host and your personal Keynote Curator. Our guest today is a longtime, dear personal friend of mine, Jen Coken. Jen, thanks so much for joining us today.
I'm so excited to be with you. This is a long time coming.
It sure is. And I want to start off by giving you an opportunity to tell everybody a little bit about you or what you think is important in the context of our conversation today, which is all things Jen Coken, what they should know about you. So why don't you do your own introduction?
Okay, no problem. Well, I think one of the keys that people should know about me is I was and still am a stand-up comedian. And so whenever I give a keynote, I have to, number one, we have to have fun. I always infuse play into it because neuroscience has shown us when we add play, like the number of repetitions that somebody needs to do to form a new habit are dramatically reduced. And you become more memorable. And the moments where, when speakers are on stage, we're hoping to deliver a message. We're hoping to make a difference. We're hoping to, hit somebody between the eyes or in the heart. And when humor's added, it always makes a difference. That's number one. So I'm a stand-up comedian, but I've also been a coach for 25 years. And I specialize in working with people who are rebellious, people who consider themselves purpose-driven or mission-driven, and generally privately coach and in groups coach CEOs and entrepreneurs. So C-suite level, love coaching women so we can have an authentic voice in the boardroom, in the office. And what else? I'm a cyclist. That's one of the things I do in my off time. I love to cycle.
You love to travel?
I love to travel. Yeah. I'm actually going to Asia next year. I'm very excited. Like 17 days. I know.
Well, pretty much you've covered everything, but preparing dinner and fixing my car. You've covered a lot.
I'm a really good cook and I cook intuitively. I don't know how to fix your car. I could have if it was like 30 years ago. I used to work on my own cars in college back in, like the 70s and 80s models. But once everything, like you couldn't tell what it was, I could put the oil in. That's about all. I can put air in my tires. That's it. That's the only thing we didn't.
Well, that's a start. Jen, the largest room in the house, room for improvement. So, that's always
there you go, Seth, with all those nuggets of wisdom.
What's your favorite thing to cook? What's your favorite thing to cook?
Oh, it depends on the time of year. In summers, I love getting really creative with salads. And then when winter comes, it's the weirdest thing. White wine and salads in the summer. The fall comes, I want red wine, stews, soup. So I'm going to make some butternut squash soup tonight, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. It's the fall, that time of year. I took all the bones and would you say carcass from the turkey and made a broth. And now I'm pulled the broth out. It's frozen. It's defrosting. And I'm going to be tilting it towards more of an Asian rice noodle with shrimp, a little bit of cut up turkey in there, some mushrooms, some water chestnuts. Yeah. And it's going to be a great hearty summer soup that I always think will last 4 or 5 days and really lasts like a day and a half because it tastes so good.
Yeah. Did you mean to say summer soup or fall soup?
Fall soup. I'm sorry. Fall, because that's what the season we're in.
It is. One time a friend said to me, I said, we need to get this stuff done. And she goes, can we do it in one fall soup? She meant to say one fell swoop, but she said one fall soup. So whenever someone says fall soup, I hear fell swoop.
You're like, sure. How about like a broccoli, barley, cheddar cheese stew soup that we can do it all inside of that pot?
Yes. Or a nice bisque.
So Jen, you say that you cook intuitively, and that opens the door a little bit to one area where you empower people and you get people into a very healthy mindset around imposter syndrome. And it's a big topic. I've learned from you that every single human being in the existence of humankind has gone through and will never have the imposter syndrome leave them. It's all a matter of how you manage it. Can you talk a little bit about it and how you work with people to empower or have power around it and govern it in a powerful way?
Absolutely. One thing that in my research of getting a better understanding, mastering, it's really in the zeitgeist right now of imposter syndrome. One of the things I found out, it's not a syndrome at all. A syndrome is a medical diagnosis, which I
Mm.
found fascinating. And it's really the two researchers that discovered it, academic researchers called it an imposter phenomenon. People say, well, why do they call it syndrome? Is the SEO better? Is that why? And I think, yeah, it's just become
Yeah,
really super.
it sounds more dramatic. It sounds more severe. It sounds more official.
Yeah, when it's called a syndrome. But,
Yeah.
here's the situation is that imposter syndrome is, I say, really another way to label an amygdala hijack, right? Our amygdala is that portion of our brain that governs fight, flight, or freeze. Anytime the brain determines threat, and traditionally through evolution, the brain was determining physical threat. We really, for the most part, aren't faced with that. Most people aren't, just depends on where you live in the world. So when we are physically safe, what the brain is still going to do that interpretive dance of psychological threat because its job is to keep the thing it's a brain of alive, which is you. So the average human brain has 50 to 60,000 thoughts a day. 85% are negative, 95% are repetitive. So if the brain's job is to determine threat, then it's determining threat most of the time, right? It's constantly taking in information and compartmentalizing it. And mostly what it's seeing is threat. So this experience of imposter syndrome or imposter phenomenon is a phenomenology. In other words, it's as lived and experienced. Because I say to people, imposter syndrome isn't real. People coin that phrase. It's great for SEO. If you Google how to overcome imposter syndrome, you will find something like 3.3 million hits.
Wow.
Because you,
Is
and you, go ahead.
now, is the perception of this threat the cause or the source or the reason why 85% of these tens of thousands of thoughts are negative?
That's just the design of human being. The moment, I call it a defining moment. Some might call it a triggering event, but I don't like the word trigger. I call it a defining moment because what I've found in coaching my clients over the years is, first of all, as you said, every person I know, every person I've ever coached has some experience of imposter syndrome. What does that look like in day to day as lived? Procrastination could be a side effect of feeling like, oh God, I don't know what to do. So I'm just going to put it off. I'm going to put it aside. Things usually come so easy
Right.
to me. This is hard. It could be trying to get it right, being a perfectionist. It could be, I'll show you, I'm going to show you how I'm going to do this, or not asking for help. There's lots of different ways it affects people, but it all comes down to a moment in time, not dramatic or traumatic, when the brain experienced a threat and had an unwanted circumstance or emotion. It could be something like embarrassment, disappointment, shame. And in that moment, the brain is like, whoa, danger. Can't keep going down this road. How do I figure out how to protect the human for future? And so what happens, why I always say make imposter syndrome your superpower, is when we identify that defining moment and we're able to figure out that, oh, there's a way that the brain strategized how to be successful. So I can avoid this unwanted experience
Right.
or emotion.
Right. It's like
And
it's like a constant negotiation.
it is. And I'll give you a good example of one of the clients I was working with. When she was about 12 years old, her cousin was a lot wealthier than the rest of the family, and she had all these designer labels. And so she invited all the girl cousins to come over and take clothing that they wanted. And Jess went to get a pair of white jeans, and her aunt says, "Oh, honey, you're kind of big to wear those." In that
Wow.
moment, yeah, Jess is embarrassed. I mean, people say stupid stuff all the time. Human beings. And as you said to me 25 years ago, when you're casual with your words create casualties. And that is something I've never forgotten. So when
Yeah.
we're thoughtless, things just, we have like diarrhea of the mouth half the time. So she
Yeah.
says this. Jess could have dropped the pants. She didn't. She was like, I'm going to show you. Goes in the bedroom, literally lies on the bed, takes a wire hanger, puts it through the top of the zipper and zips them up and comes back out.
Yikes.
And I said to her, and by the way, she's like 44, 45. She hasn't worn or bought a pair of white jeans her entire life since that moment. Okay. But what she
Yeah.
saw was that I'll show you as an adult has had her be very, very driven, very successful, created and sold 2 companies, working on her 3rd company, except she's never fulfilled. and never satisfied. So that drivenness that's driving the bus of her life is completely like a straitjacket. Yes, it's getting her success, but she's not happy with it. It's the next thing because for her, 12-year-old was still driving her life. So in the moment we disconnected that, she realized she could be driven as a choice. And the best part is she went out and bought a pair of white jeans and wore them for a photo shoot. And those photos are all over her website now.
Well,
and
good for Jess.
Satisfied in her work.
Yeah, it is amazing how those decisions or those experiences that we have just seal or stamp us, not forever, because you're doing work with people that can shift or even transform how people operate based on those experiences and decisions. But really, the power of, as much as that choice was made, that I'm going to show you that, you know, the work that you did with her then allowed her to turn that around. I don't know if it's the other side of the coin or look at it a different way and begin to own that, as opposed to having it be the driving characteristic, kind of blindly being the fuel that's driving you.
Yeah, it's a really good point, because once seen, you can't unsee something, right? So once she saw it, and what I train people in is my framework that I call the P.O.W.E.R code, and P.O.W.E.R is an acronym. The P stands for pursue the facts, and the O stands for own your stories. So in the moment that we got to this defining moment and we were able to separate fact from fiction, what happened was she tried on a pair of jeans. It's really all that happened. And her aunt said what she said.
Yeah.
That's the facts. And her aunt went blah, blah, blah. And Jess decided, I'm going to show you, and how that manifested as an adult was she was very, very driven. So that's the P and the O of P.O.W.E.R code. You can't manage your mind. Because of all the negative thoughts that we have and the repetitive thoughts, trying to manage it. I keep wanting, I mean, I'm a big fan of positive affirmations, but if I'm in the middle of being reactivated by somebody, I mostly want to throat punch them, and I don't want positive affirmations. You can snuff them up your patootie.
Right.
So what I don't even know what a patootie is. That could be interpreted a lot of ways.
Well,
but anyway.
it got the point across. That's somewhere where you would, in that moment of heat and an upset, you can take your positive affirmations and put them right there. So
put them right where the sun don't shine. Exactly.
That's right.
However, if you are able to, the more you practice mastering the mind versus managing the mind, the longer the length of time between reaction and response. So something happens, we react. And if we're practiced in being a witness, and that's the W in the P.O.W.E.R code, then you can witness, oh, wow, I just had that thought. Or, man, I noticed that I'm operating like a robot, like a machine, just being driven, and there's no joy in this. Let me step back for a second.
Yeah.
And look at that. We can witness the thoughts, feelings, and emotions. So what I tell people is imposter syndrome isn't real, but the experience is. You have a reaction. Thoughts and feelings arise at the same time. So when we can witness, we can lengthen the time between reaction and response. When we're witnessing, we're observing. We're at that 50,000 foot level. And in that moment, we can embrace a new choice, which is the E in the P.O.W.E.R code. And Jess, every moment can choose, do I want to be driven, or do I want to take a break? Do I want to be grateful? Because we're human beings, not human
Jen,
doing.
I'm sorry, that elongated period of time, what does that provide? To me, the obvious is it's like
the pause, or I like to say the pause. Like you just got to take a pause. You know, I mean, this is what meditation is for too, is allowing somebody to increase the length of time between reaction and response. It's really easy to do when we're meditating, you know, as you're watching the thoughts fly by and coming back to centering on your breath. How does that translate as lived? This is where the rubber meets the road, is using this P.O.W.E.R code and being able to witness, 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 choose, witness, choose, witness, choose. Length of time is not really a length of time. It's like nanoseconds. I mean, if you can go from a nanosecond to a second before you respond, that's worthwhile, right? That's helpful. Yeah. Don't send the email. Don't say the thing.
I mean, I guess the thing you're pointing to is that the reactionary, the instinctual, the button gets pushed and you're on automatic robot mode where you don't even realize that something else is pushing your buttons, literally and metaphorically. And that's what that time takes, whether it's a second or more. I was just pointing to it. It seems like a really important piece of what you're saying.
Yeah, I think it is. And the other piece that I want to add, because you had said when we started this part of the conversation, had asked about, oh, everybody experiences imposter syndrome. Even if you think you don't, here's the deal. Imposter syndrome only happens when we're playing on the skinny branches, because the brain's going to react when it experiences a perceived threat. So if you don't have imposter syndrome, my friend, you're not playing a big enough game. You got to get on a bigger playing field. You got to get with a better team. You got to up level your leadership and up level whatever you're up to in life, because you're not going to get imposter syndrome if I'm sitting on the couch and eating chocolate covered cherries and watching Netflix all day. I don't have imposter syndrome.
Although covered cherries are pretty good.
Delicious.
What's the R in power?
Repeat, reflect, and repeat, because it's a moment by moment phenomenon. Mastering the mind is a lifetime endeavor, but breaking it down. I've had clients say, you know what, I took out the infographic you had and I was dealing with this situation. And I tell people, whenever you're upset, write out the story of why you're upset. Who's to blame? Who did what and why they did it and the whole thing, and just write and write and write and write. Don't type it, write it, because it accesses a different part of the brain. And then go back and circle the facts. You're not going to find very many. And that's that very first piece of pursuing the facts and owning your stories. And when you can sit there and just authentically go, oh, the only fact in the story about my client, Jess, was a fact, her aunt was a fact. I mean, she might not even remember what her aunt really said and just put the jeans on. That's what happened. The rest is just nonsense, except we give our stories so much power, and that creates suffering.
Yeah. And like you said, we're constrained. There's a real narrowness to operating within that way. It's just, it's so constraining. Let me ask you this. You've come across every, I think, probably flavor of whether it's imposter phenomenon or imposter syndrome. People, I think, relate to it more as a syndrome, even though technically it's not. I don't know if it's word association or not, Jen, but I'm going to start it off. And if you could take on maybe a little bit of where I'm going with this. They're going to find out I don't know what I'm doing. I don't belong here. What are some of the versions that you run into, the more popular ones?
I don't know enough.
I don't know enough.
I don't know enough. Why am I in this room with these people? Do I really belong here? You said that one, but especially people who walk into a room or are on a panel or are speaking. Am I as good as the rest of people here? I think they know more than I do. I got to get it right. That's a big one. That's the perfectionism. I got to get it right. Got to get it right. Got to get it right. Can't ask for help. Nobody can find out. What if somebody finds out I don't know what I'm doing? Right. That's another one.
I'm smiling because it brings to mind a personal story. I was a teacher for 6 years. And I got recruited to go teach at an international school in South America. It's an accredited school, accredited by the Department of Education in the United States. Kids go to college, universities from this high school all over the world, mostly in North America. But given that it's a private school, they don't have a requirement that you are a certified teacher or have a master's in education. And I had already been a teacher for 2 years at a similar type of school in the States. And I went in for the interview with the superintendent, the headmaster of the school, and he really took a liking to me. And he basically offered me the job like in the first 10 minutes. And I just straight up, my imposter phenomenon syndrome was coming up. I was like, oh my God, they're going to find out like I'm not a teacher. But I had been teaching for years already, successfully. And I just came out with it. I spoke to me what the elephant in the room was. I said, his name was Forrest Broman. And I said, Forrest, I just want you to know, I don't have a teaching degree. And he said, Seth, you don't need one. And I said again, but I just want to be sure that you know that. He goes, I know. I read your record. I read your resume. I talked to the school that you're working for. You don't need one. And according to what everybody says, you're a great teacher. So it's almost like I went on, took the job. It was great. I spent years overseas. It was just fantastic. It was life-changing. But I was arguing for being an imposter, and he was just very calmly, very maturely fielding it and just stating the fact, A, you don't need it, and B, you're fully qualified. And I still came back with a second volley arguing that, no, you got an imposter here, but I want to be honest about it.
Well, it's not surprising. I would challenge when you said I came back, you weren't even there. It was the brain. You asked me about the brain having so many negative and repetitive thoughts. The brain's like, danger, this is not going to go well. Does he know this? And it was autopilot for you. Seth wasn't in the room. It was just automated, it's a machinery, it's brain pattern.
Yeah, I think the thin branch metaphor really speaks to me too, because as you know, in my profession, as I expand my capacities, whether it's a bigger ticket speaker or a bigger name speaker, or not even a bigger ticket, a bigger name, but a new topic or somebody that I believe in but doesn't yet have a boatload of experience, and I put my neck out on the line there, sometimes the thought does come in like, geez, are they going to find out? Like, I don't know what I'm doing or what I'm talking about, but I have 20 years of proof and facts and experience and testimonials that says otherwise, but it's still there. But I've been able to govern it and just trust myself and trust what my history says and trust what, I've been able to accomplish and provide for all of my clients. But
I have the same thoughts. After 25 years of coaching people, literally somewhere between 8 to 10,000 people, I definitely have my moments of like, do I know what I'm doing? Why?
Yeah.
She's saying it better than I ever could. He's saying it better than I ever could.
Right.
Why am I not as famous as Brandon Burchard? I don't really ask that question ever.
Right.
It's more, I'm trying to think of the comedian who's also '𝚑𝚙𝚘𝚘𝚖𝚎. Love him.
Mm-hmm.
Fill stadiums. He's hilarious. Used to be a stand-up comic. Now he's coaching people. Like, why am I not filling stadiums like 𝚑𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘𝚘? It happens.
Well, Jen, I want to shift gears a little bit, not too hard, but what are you working on right now that is most exciting you?
Oh my gosh, a couple things. One is I have VIP days that I'm doing with clients. I'm scheduling now for 2023 that, one client in particular owns 3 restaurants, maybe 4 restaurants, maybe getting 3 more. We'll know in the next month, but I'm going to fly out to either Wyoming or Colorado where his restaurants are and work with his team because they're all in the restaurant business. They're all in customer service. And one of the things his managers are struggling with is how to keep positive and how to create an empowering and positive environment when, people sometimes don't treat each other well. So those VIP days are completely customized. That's really exciting. And then I have a retreat here in Annapolis in January, at the end of January, which is designed, I call myself a vision whisperer. If you don't have a vision that is bigger than the crap between your ears, that propels you to get out of bed, that it propels you or encourages and inspires you to turn yourself inside out and get back on the phone and get back in the seat and do all the things that you came to do, you need to come to that retreat. So that's going to be exciting. I do it only twice a year, Annapolis and then Denver in June. And I'm starting to prepare for that and update the workbook, and people are starting to register. It's very, very small and curated, like Keynote curators.
That's great.
That.
Well, Annapolis is so lovely, and Denver in that time of year is just those blue skies full of sunshine. Yeah. It's just, an added plus to be in a place like that and get the incredible training and workshop and education that you provide to everybody.
Well,
on that note, Jen, go ahead.
I said, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Well, I'm not surprised you keep them small because I know how much attention you pay to everybody that you touch and have an impact on, and that's important to you. So maybe that's one of the reasons, at least right now, why you're not filling stadiums. But I think we could go on, and I'd like to finish here because I see us maybe, I don't want to get ahead of myself and overreach, but down the road, do a revisitation and another conversation and see what's transpired in 2023, not only with your trip to Asia, but how your VIP days are going and your retreats are going. Did you call them retreats or?
Yeah. Retreats. Yeah. I mean, I could call them forwards because I don't really like the word retreat, but it is what it is. Yeah.
Right. Forwards, going forward instead of retreat, which could indicate going backwards. So, we'll take it, the forwards. I like that too. Anything else that you want to share or feel it's a burning importance?
Well, I think if people can go to my website, and I have an ebook and an infographic about the power code that explains a lot more about it for them to grab. You get on my newsletter list, you can unsubscribe at any time, but grab the freebie. I think that's important to have that resource. And I'm assuming you'll have the website in the show notes unless you want me to rattle it off right here. But
we can do it now, and we will have it in the show notes. It's jencoken.com, JenCoken.com. Is that right?
Exactly. That's exactly right. And I like to say it's like the drink with an N on the end or the drug. I'm not going to judge you. I don't judge. You do you.
No judgment free zone.
No.
Imposter-free zone, or at least
Imposter-free zone. Right.
Well, Jen, it's just so great. I love working with you. I love booking you. I love how great you are with my clients, and the feedback is always phenomenal. Thanks for taking the time to be with us, and we'll keep a pending date down the road in 2023 for a revisitation and an expansion on this conversation.
I look forward to it, Seth. Thanks for having me on.
All right, you got it. If you'd like to learn more about this speaker, visit our website at thekeynotecurators.com. There you'll find dozens of videos of speakers that are a perfect fit for your event. If you'd like to reach out directly, please click on the link below in the description. My name is Seth Dechtman, and you've been watching Curated Insights.